Welcome back to Beyond the Rings Short Stories. My name's Jeff Wells. I have the great privilege of being the host of these stories and have had the opportunity to be an evangelist, as I like to say, a missionary to the Olympics for over 20 years, 10 different Olympic Games, both summer and winter. Since the summer of 2000, basically, I've been to 5 summer games, 5 winter games, only having missed the pandemic games of 2020 in Tokyo, which weren't held to the summer of 2021, and the Winter Games in Beijing, China in 2022. Both were really restricted because of the pandemic, the worldwide pandemic. I was very, very grieved by both of those misses. I had the privilege of being in Tokyo in the fall of 2019 as part of an advanced team with the International Mission Board, praying and meeting with local pastors to plan and strategize for how to make the most impact for the gospel during the Olympics in Tokyo. Loved that city. Great lostness with the Japanese people, especially in Japan. But tremendous opportunity. Really, really missed not being in Tokyo. And then I have a special place in my heart for Beijing, China. My youngest daughter is an adoptee from China, and I've been to the wonderful city of Beijing twice. Was really looking forward to get back to Beijing for the 3rd time, and missed that as well again as the opportunity to share the gospel in a truly, truly challenging culture of communist China. But Lord has given us an opportunity to move forward to Paris 2024. I really do believe that the Paris 24 Olympic Games are going to be a return to the Olympics of old for both the International Olympic Committee and nations' Olympic committees, for athletes, for supporters, for fans, and for individuals and teams like mine with ministries seeking to share the gospel during the Olympics. In that light, before we get into our main topic for today, tools that we're in the process of developing, I would ask you to pray for some dear friends of mine, international sports chaplains, my mentor and friend, Dave Gwynn. Dave won't be able to be on the ground with them in Paris this summer, but a wonderful team of great people that I've served with in the past will be on the ground using the legendary Jesus pen to share the gospel. And so pray for the international sports chaplains as they are in their process and final days of planning and preparation for the Paris 24 outreach and for their time on the ground. And also pray for the International Mission Board of the Southern Baptist Convention. I had the great privilege of working with them to develop and provide training material for penetrating evangelism that they will be utilizing with the 400 volunteers they're anticipating to join them in the summer in Paris, many of which will be using penetrating evangelism as their evangelistic tool while they're there. And so not only did I have the opportunity of helping to provide some training material for them, but also they are going to be looking for volunteers from within their volunteer ranks to spend their days doing penetrating evangelism. And they're going to send them to join up with me and the Beyond the Rings ground team to help them use their pens that they've developed to share the gospel, as we are using our pens to share the gospel with people in the same area in Paris, France. And so I'm very excited about both those ministries and those opportunities. So keep them in your prayers as well. Well, some tools that we're still in the process of developing, and I share this with you, one, so you can be aware, because I don't know if everybody really understands all the tools that are used during the Olympic Games. But I want you to be aware of the tools that are at play, and why I'm busy these next 60 days leading up to the games, getting them finished, and why I would ask you for your prayers in them. The first one is what I call business card tracts. Tracts is an old evangelistic term, where basically a tract is a piece of paper that explains the gospel message. It's something that can be left maybe when you go out to eat, or maybe you've had a brief encounter with somebody on a train or a plane or whatever. You can hand them this piece of paper that explains the gospel. It's not used much anymore in our culture. for many reasons. But one of the ways that I have found to utilize the idea of a paper tool is to use a business card. And not just a regular size business card front and back, but they call them tent cards, where basically you could set them up on a table, and there's the two sides, but then you could also open it up. And so I can't remember which Olympics it was, but going into one of them, God gave me the idea to put my name and email and contact information on the front of the card, like a regular business card. But if you opened it up, was a verbatim written explanation of the gospel message that I had shared with them using the gospel pen that they had received from me in our encounter at the Olympics. And on the back was a little, kind of what do I do now, kind of next steps kind of tool to help them take their next steps as new believers in Christ. So I found this to be helpful for a couple of reasons. One, oftentimes you will have encounters with people and you want to be able to exchange information. And so it helps with that, to have a ready-made tool, say, here's who I am, my name, email address, cell phone number. But also as a gospel tool, it's helpful to be able to leave that behind, and it's all one thing. And so oftentimes if you ask somebody if you want to give them a tract, they'll be like, I'm not interested. But if you're like, hey, we've had this neat encounter, I've shared with you, I've given you a pen from the Olympics. Here's who I am if you ever want to, be in touch. And, they don't have to know that in the inside but a lot of times I'll point out, I'm like, and on the inside, if you want to just kind of review what we've talked about, it's right here. And that's oftentimes where I'll put the Bible references, and so they can have that to look up as well. But it also comes in handy when the rules may say there's no distribution of religious material. And typically what they mean is they don't want you standing on the corner handing out Bibles or gospel tracts that are just being discarded. Now, you may think, well, that would never happen. Well, sadly, let me tell you one story from Salt Lake 2002. It was my first Winter Olympics. And because it was U.S. based, there were a lot of ministries there from across the country. But unfortunately, some of the best laid plans, the best intentions of the gospel being distributed, went sideways. And one of them was, there was a wonderful ministry there handing out entire Old and New Testament Bibles. And they were nice. They were paperback, but some of them had like players' testimonies inside, and athletes' testimonies. Really neat little Bibles, but they were just kind of handing them out on the street corner, or to people just passing by. And there was no engagement. There was no, lead up to asking them if they wanted a Bible. They were just handing them out. And unfortunately, you would go down the road a little bit, and there would be trash cans just overflowing with Bibles, where the people who had been handed them just took them, to be polite, but walked down the road and literally threw them away. And I know that had to break the hearts of those involved in that ministry, whether they financially supported it or they were there when the ones there handing them out. But any Christ follower should be brokenhearted over the literal the throwing away of God's word. And so we want to be good stewards of that. But one of the things that it prevents the authorities from doing is just dismissing it as religious material and restricting its use. So I think my approach to it is, it's my business card. And it is. It's my Beyond the Rings business card that I have designed and distribute specifically for my times during the Olympic Games. Because it will also include a QR code and the email, the website of beyondtherings.world, where we'll be directing people to where they can hear the gospel again, video presentation, they can get involved in Bible studies. So I think it's a great tool that I haven't even begun to do the design on. And so that's one of the tools that we need to get done in the next 60 days. The next one that I mentioned in a previous podcast is about the t-shirts we're having designed. I'm wearing a polo right now that has the Beyond the Rings logo on it. And it's nice, and I will wear some polos while I'm there. But a tool that we utilize are T-shirts, and on the front we'll have our gospel pin design, and on the back it'll ask this question: what's beyond the rings? And there'll be a QR code there, along with the website address, beyondtherings.world, that will direct people to that website where they can again hear the gospel, begin Bible studies, maybe begin a journey with Jesus is our hope and prayer. But when we want people to, we want to be able to proclaim that even if we're just standing in line. And I think that's one of the reasons why God gave me this name, Beyond the Rings. Because my hope and prayer is when we're at the Olympic Games, people will see that and they'll go, so what's beyond the rings? That's a great question. Let me tell you what I think is beyond the rings. I've been in the Olympics many times, and what I know is going on is it's not just athletes competing, countries celebrating, medals being awarded. It's all that for sure. But God is beyond the rings too. He's here, and he wants you to know that he loves you. And you know how we know that he loves us? It's because he sent his son, Jesus. And my hope and prayer is that the words, the name, the phrase, beyond the rings, will help draw people to the gospel, where they'll hear and respond to faith in Jesus Christ. So that's one of the things we're working on. Part of that is I want to make a video standing in front of Olympic rings sharing the gospel. Now, originally I thought I'm just going to have to record that maybe here in a Triple Play studio, and then maybe re-record it once I got over to Paris in front of some Olympic rings. But I recently discovered, if you're not aware, I'm based in St. Louis, Missouri. And St. Louis was the first non-European site of the modern Olympic Games. A lot of people don't know this, but the 1904 Games were held in St. Louis at the same time as the World's Fair. And it was a disaster. It's interesting to read the history about the World's Fair and the Olympics happening in St. Louis. The Olympics were majorly overshadowed. It was just a bad move for the Olympics. They didn't do it again. They did not do them simultaneously again. But I recently discovered that in 2018, the International Olympic Committee had a set of rings, large set of rings, like you will see at most Olympic cities, like they'll be in Paris, erected at Washington University, Francis Field, where the 1904 Olympics were held. And this is a permanent structure. So I have a set of rings accessible to me here in the St. Louis area. And my vision is to take one of the ground team members with me one day, Brandon Long. He's a Missouri Baptist University student and a friend of mine who's going to be a part of the ground team. Take him with me, go down to WashU one day and shoot this video where I'm standing in front of the Olympic rings, sharing what's beyond the rings. And so I'm excited about that. That's a vision God's given me, and I think it's going to be a great tool. So pray that I'll fulfill that, and we'll get it done, get it edited, get it uploaded to the website, ready to go before July 25th so that we can use that as a tool, not only during the 17 days of the Olympic Games in Paris, but going forward. Okay. I'm very excited about that tool as well. And, those are the major pieces of the tools that we still have outstanding. But all that takes time. There's a lot of web development that has to happen. I'm a very much a rookie at all that. But thankfully, I have some really gifted, godly people around me who are good with that, who are helping me out with that. So shout out to Zach. Thank you, Zach, for that. It takes so many people. Let me just give a few shout outs here as I wrap up this short story. Josh Reed, Josh and Scott of Triple Play, who host my playlist of these podcasts. You need to check out their podcasts. They are awesome in their own right, okay? But they make the studio accessible and available to Beyond the Rings and myself for these recordings. Josh does all the work for me, getting them ready and uploaded. He's such a blessing. Thank you so much for Josh. I'm thankful for Julie. My friend Julie Wright out of Mississippi. Her husband, Tony, is going to be on the ground team. but Julie took on the posting of the Pray Around the World posts that you see. If you've seen the Pray Around the World daily post, Julie has been taking the lead and putting those together and getting those to me so that we can get those posted. Huge thank you and shout out to Julie. I'm thankful for my home church, Concord Church, where I have the privilege of serving as their missions and online pastor. They've been so incredibly supportive. Pastor Rusty and my pastoral staff friends, so supportive. The ladies in the finance department, Gay and Gina, so helpful in helping to administer the funds coming through for Beyond the Rings this year. So thankful for them. And I knew as soon as I started doing this, I'd forget people. I've had a group of people, I call them my ministry advisors, that have helped me as I, need a sounding board. That would be my wife, Christine Wells, my dear friends, Matt Schleicher and Brian Marshall, my dear friend, Mandy Perry, and my friend Kyle. And Kyle, I apologize, I can't pronounce your last name right now. It starts with an H, but I can't pronounce it right, and I don't have it in front of me. But they have all been very helpful and instrumental as sounding boards and advisors. We're not quite yet a 501(c), but we will be soon, Lord willing, before we even go to Paris. But they've been tremendously helpful up to this point. And there are others coming on board. Working with a dear friend right now who is going to help out with some of our publication needs. And so that's it for this episode of Beyond the Ring Short Stories. Thank you for tuning in. Check out beyondtherings.net, where you can join the support team, where we ask you to pray, give, and share. And you can find out more about what's happening at Beyond the Rings, both as we prepare to be in Paris for the 24 outreach, while we're there during the outreach, and after the outreach. Thank you again for being a part of this. God bless you. Until we see you next time.